Genesis 12 ended with Abram in Egypt, fearful, compromised, rescued by God's grace. Yet God did not cancel his call. Genesis 13 shows Abram returning back to the altar, restored and ready to walk again in faith. Here another test comes, not famine this time, but conflict. This conflict is not with kings or enemies, but with family. Lot, his nephew. Sometimes the hardest tests of faith are not hunger or enemies, but relationships, families, friendships, partnerships. These moments show whether we will cling to God's promise or fight for ourselves. This story is not about land. It is about faith versus sight, generosity versus greed, humility versus pride, and it is a prophetic picture of how the righteous and the worldly are separated by their choices. Back to Bethel. Returning to the altar, Genesis 13, 1-4. Abram went up from Egypt to the Negev with his wife and everything he had, and Lot went with him. From the Negev, he went from place to place until he came to Bethel, to the place between Bethel and Ai, where his tent had been earlier and where he had first built an altar. There Abram called on the name of the Lord. After failure in Egypt, Abram doesn't stay stuck in shame. He goes back to the altar, back to the place of worship. Egypt represented fear and compromise. Bethel represents restoration and faith. Before the conflict with Lot comes, Abram is first restored in worship. Before God tests you with people, he restores you at the altar. Don't face conflicts without first facing God. The altar is the place of reset. True strength to handle relationships comes from worship, not arguments. Application today. When you have failed, don't stay in Egypt. Go back to Bethel. Don't run from God. Run back to his presence. The problem. Blessing brings conflict. Genesis 13, 5-7. Now Lot, who was moving about with Abram, also had flocks and herds and tents, but the land could not support them while they stayed together. And quarreling arose between Abram's herders and Lot's herders. The Canaanites and Perizzites were also living in the land at that time. Both Abram and Lot are blessed materially, but prosperity creates pressure. The land looks too small for both. Strife arises, not between Abram and Lot directly, but between their people. Meanwhile, unbelievers, Canaanites, and Perizzites are watching. Prosperity tests unity. Sometimes blessing exposes hearts. Strife among God's people always damages their witness to unbelievers. The enemy loves to divide God's family in front of the world. Application today. Our churches and families must remember unbelievers are always watching. When believers fight, Canaanites laugh. Abram's faith, letting go. Genesis 13, 8-9. So Abram said to Lot, let's not have any quarreling between you and me, or between your herders and mine, for we are close relatives. Is not the whole land before you? Let's part company. If you go to the left, I'll go to the right. If you go to the right, I'll go to the left. Abram does not fight for land. He fights for peace. He takes the humble position, giving Lot the first choice. He trusts God's promise more than human advantage. Faith does not cling. Faith releases. Abram knows God gave him the promise, so no man can steal it. He doesn't need to grasp. He lets go because his security is in God. Jesus said in Matthew 5:9, Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. Connection. Philippians 2:5-8. Jesus humbled himself, letting go of his rights, and God exalted him. True faith gives up the fight for self-advantage. Faith does not grasp, faith rests. Lot's choice, walking by sight. Genesis 13:10-13. Lot looked around and saw that the whole plain of the Jordan toward Zoar was well watered, like the garden of the Lord, like the land of Egypt. So Lot chose for himself the whole plain of the Jordan and set out toward the east. Lot lived among the cities of the plain and pitched his tents near Sodom. Now the people of Sodom were wicked and were sinning greatly against the Lord. Lot chooses by sight, not by faith. He sees the green land, the fertile plains, the economic advantage. His eyes deceive him. It looks like Eden, but it is actually Egypt. He chooses selfishly, without regard for Abram, and without prayer. His choice places him near Sodom, a city of wickedness. Not every green field is from God. What looks like Eden may be Egypt in disguise. What looks prosperous may hide destruction. Sight can deceive. Only faith sees truth. 2 Corinthians 5:7. We walk by faith, not by sight. Connection. Hebrews 11:25. Moses chose to suffer with God's people rather than enjoy the fleeting pleasures of sin. Application today. Don't choose jobs, relationships, or opportunities by sight alone. Ask, will this draw me near God or near Sodom? God's response, promise renewed. Genesis 13:14-17. The Lord said to Abram after Lot had parted from him, lift up your eyes from where you are and look north and south, east and west. All the land that you see, I give to you and your offspring forever. Go, walk through the length and breadth of the land, for I am giving it to you. Lot lifted his eyes to Sodom. Now God lifts Abram's eyes to promise. Lot chose for himself. Abram receives from God. Lot takes temporary gain. Abram inherits eternal promise. God confirms. Abram's descendants will be countless. The land his forever. Lesson. When you let go in faith, God gives back more. Lot grabbed, Abram released. Lot ended in destruction, Abram in blessing. The way of faith is always greater than the way of sight. Matthew 6:33. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well. Connection. John 10:10. Jesus came to give life, abundant and eternal. Application today. If you choose peace and faith over greed and sight, God will always give you more than you could take for yourself. Abram builds again. Worship before possession. Genesis 13:18. So Abram went to live near the great trees of Mamre at Hebron, where he pitched his tents. There he built an altar to the Lord. Abram does not rush to seize the land. He first builds an altar. Worship before possession, promise before fulfillment. The altar comes before inheritance. Lesson. True faith worships before it receives. Abram is not obsessed with the land, but with God. The man who builds altars will always inherit what God promises. Connection. Romans 12:1. Offer your bodies as living sacrifices. Connection. Hebrews 13:15. Let us continually offer a sacrifice of praise. Application today. Before chasing possessions, Build an altar of worship. Worship secures what striving never can. Conclusion. The story of Abram and Lot is a story of separating, not of land, but of faith in sight. Lot chose by sight and ended in Sodom's destruction. Abram chose by faith and inherited eternal promise. Lot pitched his tent near sin. Abram built his altar near God. Final appeal. Where are your eyes today? Toward Sodom or toward the promise? Are you grasping like Lot or releasing like Abram? Build your altar. Trust your God. The land that looks small now will be more than enough when God gives it.